Types of homes not to buy. Let's go into some of these issues here, okay? Not demand real estate. I mean, I tell you what, if you just learn demand real estate and don't buy anything that does not fit the categories of demand real estate, you will pretty much never have trouble. Everybody I know that has trouble or has had trouble violates the demand real estate principles. Period. Physical reasons, financial, we already talked about. Physical reasons is structural. Financial reasons, financial package. Physical reasons, no demand real estate. We already talked about that. Okay. Here's a couple key points. So, of course, the demand real estate is population growth, job growth, schools, churches, crime, right? Small houses, less than 1,000 square feet. Small master bedroom, less than 12 by 12. If you buy less than 1,000 square feet, what's the likelihood your master bedroom is going to be less than 12 by 12? This is major. Why? Why never buy a home with a master bedroom that is less than 12 by 12? Why is there no demand? Why? Why?
Women don't want it.
Why?
Because it's small.
Why?
Because it doesn't fit the king bed. And it
Bang.
doesn't fit shit.
That's right. That's right there. No, that's right. What are they coming from? Renting. They have furniture. They typically have a queen bed or a king bed and furniture to match. The furniture will not fit in there. And who's the first person that's going to know it when they walk in that master bedroom? The woman.
Yeah.
She's going to look at the measurements and she's going to see, will my bed fit and where will it fit and where will my other furniture fit? Is that not right? And it's over with just like that.
I'm on no bed. No big bed.
That's why. So that's a big deal. If you got a great deal on a home and it's less than 12 by 12, you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
Busy streets. So it can be it doesn't have to be a cul-de-sac. I love cul-de-sacs. But do I want it on the main street of that neighborhood? Oh man, no. What mom wants her kids to be in front of those cars going and flying through the main street of a neighborhood? What's a war zone? That's where there's drugs, crime, bad neighborhood, drugs and crime. Functionally obsolete layouts and low ceilings. I had a friend that bought a functionally obsolete. Here's what they did. They bought a 2-2. It had a garage, a 2-2. So all they did is turn the garage into a bedroom. Because to get credit for it, it just has to have lighting and air. It doesn't have to have plumbing. So it's real easy to push air into it or electric. But now you have an obsolete. So you come into the living room and somebody's walking in and out of the bathroom right into the living room where people are watching TV. You have a functionally obsolete floor plan. Well, one of my friends bought one like that. Before I knew, I came over, looked at it, and I'm like, so she was going to sell it. I'm like, this isn't going to sell for top dollar. She goes, why? I go, well, and I explained this to her. People, and actually the house she had, you had to walk through a bedroom to get to the other bedroom.
No way. What the? Absolutely not.
Yeah. So they listed it as a 3-2. It was really a 2-2. But they made it to have electric and lighting and they put walls up just to make it a 3-2, because what happens to the value of the home when the square foot is listed as a 3-2 square foot versus a 2-2. That's what they do. That's another strategy that people do. There's so many strategies in real estate. It's amazing. And that's what they did with their home. I go, oh. And she took a hit on that. She took a hit. And why did she move? She was too far from work. This is a totally different person. She was too far from work, tired of driving that distance. She wanted to move closer to work. There you are. Houses with no garages or off-street parking's bad. No garages. If no garages are normal for your area, but depends where you're at. Like if there's a lot of snow or bad weather up north and you have a rental home, oh, that's going to be hard to sell. You think the wife wants to come out and scrape that door? You think the husband wants to come out and scrape the door? You don't want to scrape it. You want your car, nothing like being in a garage, opening the garage door and your car being clean when you drive out into the snow. Bad lots, steep grades, weird shapes, flood zones. I told you my friend it was a real small backyard and it was steep. That was just one major problem. And it didn't sell. So he's a smart guy, so he called back. You know, the people sign in. When they sign in, they have them sign in. And so it wasn't selling, and he wasn't getting really any offer, which was unusual. It was a nice house. It was all new. He goes, if you don't mind, I'm just curious. I'm just doing research on why you didn't make an offer or why wasn't the house. What was the number one reason they said they didn't want to buy the house? The small slope backyard for the kids to play in. There was no room for the kids to play in. The steepness, they didn't feel safe. You know, it was steep and small. You know, there was no room for the kids to play in. What do you have to do with price now? Remember, anytime you violate demand real estate, what do you have to be able to do with your rent or price? You got to be able to lower it how much? A little or a lot? Minimum 20%. Junky neighborhoods, trash in yards, broken down cars, train. That's why I like going into the car. You can't see that on Google. So when I get my neighborhoods and do my research, I like driving through the neighborhood. And one of the things I'm going to look for is how clean do the neighbors keep things? Are we seeing a lot of stuff in the yards? Are the yards being mowed? Are we seeing junk? What's the prevalence of this? Or is it kind of just a good, clean neighborhood? I'm seeing kind of junk here and there and everywhere. I'm turning around leaving. I'm like, no. That's the good thing about HOAs. You know, there's a lot of bad things with HOAs, but HOAs also mandate certain things. You can't put your boat in your front yard, you know, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of good things about these HOAs. Typically, you find that stuff when there's very little to no HOAs. You know, low price, no HOAs, you can be guaranteed you got a lot of junk everywhere. Move-in ready houses, you're going to pay the most. Houses with severe structural issues. One of my clients had me look at some real estate. I go into the neighborhood, and the neighborhood was built maybe in the early 80s. But the roofs, it was a real weird design. It had like, they made it like for a design effect. And the roof was multi-angled and segmented. Like where you went in, there was the roof here, and then it dropped down and it went here, and then back here, you know, there was a ceiling light, and so it went here and here. What's that going to do to maintenance? Cost? How much is it going to cost to repair that roof? Just because it's multi-leveled. And a skylight. You think I want a skylight? What happens with skylights? Leak. It was multi-level with a skylight. I go, turn around. Just get out. And all the homes were like, that was the design for that neighborhood. I looked at that and I go, you see that? I explained that to them. I said, just turn around and leave. I don't care what they're selling for. I don't want you to give me that house. Mold issues, of course, down in South Florida, you got to worry about. There's two different kinds of mold, though. Some mold isn't. It's no big deal. I think it's like the black mold that's really bad for you. But as soon as anybody hears mold, especially a mom with kids, they freak. So you want to do everything you can, make sure there's no mold. If there is mold, and actually you have to disclose this stuff or you're liable. So you got to think twice if there's mold issues. If there are, you better have a really good remediation and be able to show the person. But a lot of times the mothers won't care. They'll just hear mold, boom, they're gone.
To remediate that is just put 10% bleach in water and spray it. I talked to the guy that...
It has nothing to do with logic.
Yeah.
It has to do with emotion. This has nothing to do with logic. Now, mold houses, pay attention to that. Houses where the average days on market is over 90 days. If the average home on market, DOM is days on market. Most homes are going to sell 30, 60 days. Good home that's priced right, it'll sell in 30 days. So if there's a lot of homes that are over 30 days, something's going on here. Is there something going on with the market or? Now it's real unique right now. It's a great time to buy now. Why? With owner financing right now.
Because the interest rates are high.
A lot of people can't get loans. Does that mean nobody's selling their house now? You still have all these people wanting to sell their homes, and you have a lot less people that can get a loan to buy them. So guess what they have to do right now? Owner financing is ripe right now. Even if it's short term. Because they'll do short-term owner financing before they'll do long-term. So people who would not even do a subject to and turn it over and walk away, they'll do 5-year short-term loan knowing they'll get paid out in 5 or 7 years. So even if you just kept the property for 5 or 7 years, depending on if it was a good property, how much money if you turn around and sell it 5 years later? If you did a land lease, owner rent to own, lease to own, they didn't buy it, you just got the deposit. You made the cash flow, you got the appreciation, you got the difference in the sell price from when you bought it from when you sold it. You got four different profit centers just like that. Hold on.
You lost me.
Days on market. Days on market. Pay attention when there's more days on market. Outdated electrical, plumbing, expensive. Now, you're going to get into that when you buy homes and built in 1920 and 40. That's when you're going to get into iron and even brass. Brass leaks after a while, if you don't know that. My friend bought a $450,000 home, and this was 20 years ago in Kentucky. That home's probably worth about $800,000 now. All brass water pipes. What happened to that brass after about 10, 15 years? They start developing divots. Boom, started developing leaks. Seeing all these wet spots. Had to cut through the ceiling, replace all the brass, and they didn't replace it with brass because you're going to get the same thing. See? Same with iron. I got one friend who had iron pipes. The good news, he's in Florida and he's in the neighborhood that is in the homes are lifted off about 2 feet so the wind can go under there. They made that before the air conditioner to help as a part of cooling houses so the wind could go under the house and cool it as well as the windows. And his house was built in like 1920 or something like that. A bungalow type house. And so, I mean, he had a lot of problems. You got wood, you got termites. I mean, he got a lot of problems. But when he replaced the pipes, they were all old iron pipes. The good news is he could access it because of the crawl space. You know what kind of problem you got if he could not have accessed the plumbing?
I just redid all mine.
That's a nightmare right there. Just replacing the plumbing itself. And then it depends on your circuit breakers. You know, if you have grandfathered in circuit breakers or not. Well, a lot of times when it sells, you're not grandfathered in. So now you got to rewire the whole house. So that's another major reason I say don't get involved with homes that are over 30 years old. You're headed for a lot of trouble. Again, the more you know, you can go into these niche areas. But when you're just getting into real estate and you go into a niche area, you're going to get in trouble fast. So, financial reasons. So, we said What are the 4 big categories of demand real estate? Location and the subcategories. Structure, subcategories. Financial package, subcategories. Motivation, subcategories. Financial reasons, negative cash flow. Sometimes people will buy a house and it's just maybe a little bit of negative cash flow. They go, well, it's no big deal, it'll work out. That gets to be a problem. Even if it's only $15, it gets to be a problem. I mean, you never want to buy that just negative cash flows from day one. Large HOA fees. Now, what's the definition of large? You got to look at your ratios. You got to look at the possible rent you're going to get, what's going to be to taxes, maintenance, insurance, and mortgage payment, vacancy rate, property manager. See, so large is different depending on where you're at, what your numbers are. But the bottom line, which one typically are you going to get hurt by the most? CDD fees. Community development fees. That's when you have security, a pool, a community center. That's that stuff. HOA fees are typically low. Even if the person has them, they're typically low. Usually HOA fees won't be a deal killer, usually. I think the most I've ever seen is $125 a month, and that's high for HOA fees. Usually it's like $50 a quarter or $100 a quarter. That's no big deal. It's the CDD fees. CDD, that's what gets up to $400, $500, $600, $700. Kills your potential profit. Adjustable rate mortgages, you gotta be real careful about that. You get involved, everything cash flow, it adjusts, and then it goes into negative cash flow, you're in trouble. So I'm going to look at those adjustable rates. When do they adjust, and what's it based on? Is it a fixed adjustable rate or variable? Well, what if it's tied to GDP or something in the economy, and you don't know what's going to happen? It can go out of your control fast. Well, if it's fixed, I can calculate the fixed rate and see if it's going to fall in line or not. But I try to stay away from adjustable rates. If I do, I want it fixed. And then I want to make sure the fixed rate number is going to go into the cash flow. Same with balloon mortgages. This used to be big years ago. They'd put people in homes for very little down, very low interest rate, and they'd put them in a balloon mortgage where the money they owed at the end of the balloon mortgage was more than the original mortgage because the interest rate was tacked on to the principal. This is what happened 20 years ago, just to get people in homes for a little, all these tricks and gimmicks. So you get involved with a balloon mortgage. So you think you need to know what kind of mortgage you got if you're gonna buy a home and do any order of financing? We're gonna find out. I'm going to find out what kind of mortgage we got here. I'll show you how to do that. I just use it's real easy. I don't even do it myself. I just hire, because you always want to have the title looked at. Always. And you always want title insurance. So I just go to a closing company and I just have them do the research for the title and the liens. That's when you're going to find this information. And they're used to looking through titles and all that, and they're liable. You pay them, they're also liable, and they have insurance for being liable. You're not real good at it, you don't know what you're doing, how much can you miss? A lot. So I don't even fool with it. I just have my closing company evaluate the liens and the mortgages. They're responsible for it now, not me. I mean, I am with this, but legally they're in line for that.